They picture ease, silence, freedom from effort. But simplicity does not mean softness. Out here, simplicity is earned. Life on a floating raft begins without ceremony. No walls thick enough to block sound. No foundation buried deep in the ground. Just wood, rope, water, and balance. Every morning starts the same way. Not with alarms or traffic noise, but with movement. The raft shifts slightly beneath your weight. The water announces itself before your thoughts do. You learn very quickly that nothing here is passive. Even standing still requires attention. Floating raft life strips things down to essentials. But essentials demand work. There is no background system quietly keeping things running. If something functions, it's because someone made it function. If something breaks, it demands immediate respect. This is not the kind of simplicity that removes effort. It concentrates it. People who choose raft life often do so, chasing quiet. And they find it. But quiet reveals everything, every creak, every imbalance, every mistake. There is no separation between living and maintaining. They are the same action. Cooking means monitoring fire, wind, and balance. Sleeping means listening, not resting. Waking means checking before assuming. The raft teaches you this early. It teaches you that comfort is conditional, that safety is active, that laziness is expensive. Days unfold slowly, but they are full. Not with events, with tasks. Water must be managed. Supplies must be protected. Tools must be ready. Even rest feels earned. Simple living on water is not about doing less. It's about doing only what matters, and doing it well. Weather decides the tone of the day. Wind determines effort. Current determines patience. You stop asking what you want to do. You start asking what the water will allow. This changes how time feels. On land, time is something you chase. On a raft, time is something you inhabit. There is no rushing without consequence. There is no delay without cost. Balance becomes instinctive. You move differently, carefully, but not cautiously. Your body learns before your mind does. Hands learn how to grip wet rope. Feet learn how to adjust to motion. Muscles learn how to compensate without complaint. Floating raft life reshapes the body quietly, and it reshapes the mind. Even more, there is no illusion of control here. Only cooperation. You don't dominate the water. It accumulates small repairs, constant adjustments, daily decisions that prevent bigger problems. The raft rewards attention. It punishes neglect. Not emotionally, physically. If something fails, you feel it immediately. Under your feet, in your balance, in your safety. This immediacy keeps you honest. People talk about freedom when they talk about raft life. But freedom here doesn't mean absence of responsibility. It means responsibility without illusion. You know exactly what keeps you afloat, and exactly what could take that away. That knowledge changes how you value things. Possessions shrink. Needs clarify. Wants lose volume. What remains feels heavier because it matters. Nights arrive differently on the water. Darkness feels closer. Silence feels wider. You listen more than you speak. Sleep comes lightly. Not from fear, from awareness. The raft moves even when you don't, and your body learns to move with it. Floating raft. That sharpness becomes calm. Not comfort, calm, the kind that comes from readiness. People who last out here learn quickly that simplicity is not escape. It is confrontation. Confrontation with weather, with effort, with limits, and with yourself. Some days feel repetitive. Others feel relentless, but none feel meaningless, because every action has consequence, and every consequence is visible. This is the everyday reality of floating raft life. Not romantic, not cruel, just honest, and honesty demands work. Asterisk, the longer you stay on a floating raft, the more your definition of normal begins to change. Things that once felt uncomfortable slowly become familiar. Things that once felt familiar begin to feel unnecessary. Your hands start to move before your thoughts catch up. You wake already listening. The water has moods, and over time, you learn how to read them. A certain tension in the current, a certain sound in the wind passing through rope and wood. These signs are subtle, but they are constant. Ignoring them is never an option. Hard work on a raft rarely comes all at once. It arrives in small, persistent demands. Tighten this. Rebalance that. Dry what must not stay wet. Secure what might shift in the night. Nothing here stays finished for long. Maintenance is not a task you complete. It's a relationship you maintain. Wood swells and shrinks. Rope frays. Metal rusts faster than you expect, and water remembers every weakness. There are days when the work feels endless, not because it is heavy, but because it never truly stops. Even rest requires preparation. Before you sit, you check. Before you sleep, you secure. Before you leave the raft, you plan the return. Floating raft life teaches you to think ahead without anxiety, to anticipate without fear, because fear wastes energy, and energy here is valuable. Food carries more meaning than it ever did on land. Not because it's scarce, but because everything required to prepare it is visible. Fire must be protected from wind. Balance must be maintained while cooking. Waste must be managed carefully. Every meal is proof that effort worked. You eat slower, not out of ritual, but out of respect. Water dictates rhythm. Too much movement, and the raft reminds you. Too little attention, and it drifts where you didn't intend. You learn to move with purpose, not hurried. They imagine it as peace without interruption, but isolation on water is different. There is no crowd, but there is constant presence. The water is always there. The wind is always there. Travel farther. Silence feels fuller. Your own thoughts become louder, but also clearer. There is nowhere to hide from routine, and nowhere to hide from yourself. Some days, the work feels meditative. Your hands repeat familiar motions. Your body moves without resistance. Other days, every task feels heavier than it should. The difference is rarely physical, it's mental. Floating raft life removes distractions, not difficulty, which means whatever you carry inside becomes more noticeable. Patience becomes a skill. Frustration becomes obvious. Resilience becomes necessary. Storms arrive without drama at first. A shift in light, a change in pressure, a tension in the air. Then the work intensifies. Ropes tightened. Supplies secured, movement minimized. You don't fight storms on a raft. You endure them. The raft rises and falls. You rise and fall with it. Sleep becomes fragmented, not from fear, but from responsibility. You wake to check. You listen for change. You feel for imbalance. Morning after a storm feels different, not triumphant, not relieved, just quieter, because surviving is not a victory here. It's the expectation. Hard work is not something you talk about much on a raft. It becomes background noise. What stands out instead is efficiency. Preparation.com response. You learn that strength isn't about force. It's about consistency, about doing the small things correctly every day. Floating raft life does not reward shortcuts. It exposes them. If you rush, something slips. If you ignore, something shifts. If you delay, something worsens. The water does not punish. It simply responds. People ask if the life ever gets easier. The answer is complicated. The work does not lessen, but resistance to it does. Your body adapts. Your expectations adjust. Your priorities refine themselves. You stop measuring days by comfort. You measure them by stability. Did the raft hold? Did you stay balanced? If yes, the day was successful. This kind of success is quiet, invisible to outsiders, but deeply satisfying. Evenings slow down naturally. Light fades. Movement softens. The raft settles into night. You sit more. You watch more. You think less, not because thoughts disappear, but because they no longer demand attention. The water reflects whatever remains. Some nights feel long. Others disappear quickly. Time behaves differently when effort anchors it. Floating raft life teaches you that simplicity is not about removing work. It's about removing waste. Waste of movement. Waste of thought. Waste of energy. What remains is essential, and essential things require care. And so the days continue. Not dramatic, not easy, just steady. Built on work you cannot ignore, and a simplicity you cannot fake. After enough time on a floating raft, the work stops feeling like something separate from living. It becomes the way you live. There is no division between chores and moments. Everything is a moment that requires attention. The mind changes quietly. At first you notice impatience. Small delays feel larger than they should. Small failures feel personal. But slowly, the raft teaches something different. It teaches acceptance without surrender. You learn that not everything needs fixing immediately. Some things need observation first. The water shows this best. Currents shift. Winds change direction. What feels wrong in one moment often corrects itself in the next. Reacting too quickly can create more problems than waiting. This lesson transfers inward. You stop fighting discomfort. You stop demanding certainty. You learn to sit inside uncertainty without panic. Loneliness arrives differently here. It is not sudden. It is gradual. It comes in quiet spaces between tasks, in moments when there is nothing that urgently needs doing. On land, these moments are filled automatically. Screens, voices, noise. On the raft, they are empty by default. At first, the emptiness feels heavy. You become aware of how often you relied on distraction. But over time, that emptiness becomes spacious. Thoughts slow down. Concerns lose urgency. You begin to notice small details instead. The way water changes color through the day. the sound of rope tightening in cold air, the way your body instinctively adjusts to motion. These observations don't feel important at first, but they accumulate. They ground you. Hard work continues, unchanged. There are repairs you didn't expect, breakdowns that test patience, weather patterns that force adaptation. Some days feel repetitive, others feel demanding, but repetition builds familiarity, and familiarity builds confidence. Not loud confidence, quiet confidence, the kind that doesn't need reassurance. Floating raft, life forces honesty with limits, physical limits, mental limits, emotional limits. You learn when to push and when to pause. Ignoring exhaustion is dangerous. So is avoiding effort. Balance is everything. You begin to trust your instincts more than plans. Plans are flexible here. Instinct is immediate. This shift changes how you view control. You stop trying to dominate outcomes. You start preparing for variation. Preparation replaces anxiety. Loneliness deepens at certain points, not because you are alone, but because connection feels farther away. Voices from land feel distant. Concerns of others feel abstract. You realize how much of modern conversation is noise. Here, words matter more because there are fewer of them. When you speak, you mean it. When you listen, you stay present. Silence becomes a language. Hard work continues. Even when motivation fades, this is one of the hardest lessons. You learn that discipline matters more than mood. The raft doesn't care how you feel. It responds only to what you do. This clarity is harsh at first, then freeing. You stop negotiating with yourself. You simply act. Storms still come. Some are stronger than others. Each one tests systems, patience, and judgment. You learn that preparation is not paranoia. It is respect. Respect for the unpredictability of water. Respect for your own vulnerability. After storms, there is no celebration. There is inspection. You check for damage. You adjust what shifted. You learn from what held. Every storm leaves information behind. Floating raft. Life is a long lesson in humility. No matter how skilled you become, the water remains stronger, and that truth brings attentive instead. Days stretch differently. Now, time feels less like something passing, and more like something unfolding. You measure progress in stability, not milestones. Did you adapt? Did you stay calm? Did you maintain balance? If yes, the day was enough. There are moments of doubt, moments when you question why you chose this. Not because it's hard, but because it's honest. Honesty removes excuses. You see clearly where effort ends and choice begins. And that clarity can be uncomfortable, but it is also grounding. Because once you accept the work, you stop resisting the life. The raft becomes familiar under your feet. The water becomes predictable in its unpredictability. You are no longer a visitor. You belong to the rhythm. Floating raft, life does not offer escape from responsibility. It offers alignment with it. And in that alignment, something settles. Not happiness, not comfort, something steadier, a sense of being where you need to be. By the time you have lived on a floating raft long enough, something fundamental changes. You stop asking whether this life is hard. That question, no longer feels relevant. Hardness becomes a constant, like gravity. Not something to judge, just something to account for. What matters more is whether the work still feels meaningful, and meaning here comes quietly. It shows up in small confirmations, a repair that holds through the night, a storm passed without damage, a morning where everything is exactly where it should be. These moments don't look impressive from the outside, but inside this life, they carry weight. Endurance becomes less about strength and more about attention. The people who last on floating rafts are not the strongest. They are not the toughest. They are the most consistent. They show up every day for the work without expecting the work to change. There are moments, deep into this life, when the idea of leaving crosses your mind. Not dramatically, not emotionally, just practically. You imagine still floors, walls that don't move, systems that work without daily involvement, and for a moment, it sounds appealing, but then you realize something. Those systems work without you, and that distance feels strange. Now, floating raft, life pulls you into direct participation. Nothing is abstract. If something fails, you know why. If something succeeds, you know how. That there is no mystery, and that transparency becomes addictive. Long-term raft living reshapes identity. You stop defining yourself by what you own. You stop defining yourself by what you plan. You define yourself by what you maintain, by what you protect, by what you keep afloat. This changes how you view effort. Effort stops feeling like a burden and starts feeling like proof of presence. You are here. You are paying attention. You are involved. Loneliness still exists. It never disappears completely, but it changes shape. It becomes less about missing people and more about missing complexity. Life here is simple, and that simplicity removes layers. There is no room for pretending, no place to hide from routine. What remains is direct, and direct living asks difficult questions. Are you patient enough? Are you observant enough? Are you willing to repeat yourself every day? Because floating raft life is not about novelty, it is about continuation. Weather cycles repeat, tasks repeat, challenges repeat. What changes is you. Your reactions slow, your judgments soften, your expectations narrow. You stop hoping for easier days. You hope for stable ones. You learn that peace is not the absence of effort, but the absence of unnecessary resistance. The raft continues to move beneath you. The water continues to shift, and you continue to adapt. There is pride here, but it is quiet. No applause, no validation, just the knowledge that you handled what came. That knowledge builds slowly, but it lasts eventually. Floating raft life stops feeling like a lifestyle choice. It becomes a framework, a way of meeting the world. You carry it with you even when you leave the water. You listen more. You waste less. You prepare quietly. You trust your ability to adjust. People ask if you would recommend this life to others. The honest answer is complicated. This life is not for those seeking ease. It is not for those avoiding responsibility. It is for those who want clarity, because floating raft life removes excess until only truth remains. Truth about effort, truth about limits, truth about what actually matters. Simple living here is not aesthetic. It is functional. Hard work here is not temporary. It is permanent, and that permanence becomes grounding as days continue. Seasons change. The raft bears marks of time, scratches, repairs, adjustments, layered over adjustments. So do you, but neither feels worn out. they feel seasoned, still floating, still responding. Life afloat does not promise comfort. It offers alignment, and alignment, once found, is difficult to abandon. The water keeps moving, the work continues, and you remain present, attentive, and afloat. Asterisk. When you live this close to the water, nothing stays abstract for long. Every sound feels nearer. Every movement feels louder. The raft doesn't hide anything. It doesn't soften mistakes. It doesn't exaggerate effort either. It just responds. You feel it first in your hands. Hands that are always slightly rough, always slightly tired, always ready, wood leaves marks on your skin. Rope teaches your fingers patience. Water teaches them humility. These hands know the raft better than your thoughts do. They know where weight should be placed, where pressure must be gentle, where force will only make things worse. Close up, nothing about this life looks clean or polished. It looks used, and that's the truth of it. Simple living here is not minimal because it's ascetic. It's minimal because anything unnecessary becomes a burden. You don't keep what you don't use. You don't use what you can't maintain. Every object has a reason to exist, and every reason demands care. Look closely at the raft, the small cracks in the wood, the rope fibers separating slowly over time, the marks left by weather that never asks permission. None of this feels dramatic when you're living it. It just feels present. Hard work doesn't arrive as exhaustion. It arrives as attention. You are always paying attention to the sound of water under the deck, to the way the raft shifts when you move, to the wind pressing differently against your body. You stop multitasking out here, not because you try to be mindful, but because the environment demands it. Distraction costs balance. Balance costs safety. So you focus, and in that focus, something changes. Your breathing slows. Your movements simplify. Your thoughts stop racing ahead. Close up, your face tells the story before you do. Not stress, not fear. Concentration, eyes always checking, jaw relaxed but ready, posture slightly forward, always listening. You don't fight the raft. You listen to it. People think quiet means nothing is happening, but here, quiet is full. It's full of decisions you don't announce, adjustments you don't dramatize, effort you don't complain about. When the wind picks up, your body reacts before words form. When the current shifts, your feet respond without thought. This is not instinct you were born with. It's instinct you earn. Hard work on a floating raft is repetitive. But repetition here is not boring. It is refining. Each day you do the same tasks, slightly better, with less wasted movement, with less unnecessary force. The raft teaches efficiency without teaching speed. Speed is dangerous. Efficiency is survival. Close your eyes for a moment. You can still feel the movement. A gentle, constant reminder that nothing is fixed. That reminder keeps you awake in a different way. Not anxious, aware. Sleep here is lighter. Not because you're afraid, but because your body stays engaged. Even resting feels participatory. You rest with one ear listening. One part of you always tuned in. This kind of living rewires comfort. Comfort stops meaning softness. It starts meaning stability. A rope that holds. A platform that stays level. A night that passes without surprise. Those things feel luxurious out here. Close up, the water reflects your face back at you, sometimes calm, sometimes distorted. You learn not to trust reflections too. Much conditions change faster than appearances. This life teaches you to value reality over image. You don't perform here. There's no audience, just cause and effect. If you're careless, the raft responds. If you're patient, it rewards you. That feedback loop is constant. Hard work stops feeling like sacrifice. It starts feeling like conversation. You act. The environment replies. Over time, that conversation becomes quieter, not because the challenges disappear, but because you understand each other better. Close up. Loneliness feels different too. It's not the loneliness of being unwanted. It's the loneliness of being fully present. There are no distractions to dilute your thoughts, no noise to interrupt memory. Sometimes, your own reflection in the water feels like company, not because you need it, but because you recognize it. You see yourself clearly here, without titles, without urgency, without performance, just a person doing what needs to be done. That clarity is uncomfortable at first, then grounding. Hard work strips away illusion. You realize how much effort you use to waste, how much energy you spend avoiding discomfort instead of managing it. On the raft, discomfort isn't avoided, it's negotiated. Cold mornings, wet hands, heavy weather. You don't complain. You adapt. Close up. Adaptation looks quiet. It looks like layering clothing carefully, like tightening knots slowly, like choosing when to move and when to wait. You learn that waiting is not weakness. Sometimes the strongest action is restraint. The raft rewards patience more than strength. That lesson stays with you, even when you're not on the water. Close up. Time feels thicker. Minutes stretch. Moments linger, not because they're dramatic, but because you're fully inside them. You are not rushing toward anything. You are staying. Staying requires effort, and effort, when sustained long enough, becomes identity. You stop asking if this life is hard. You start asking if it's honest, and it is. Pain doesn't hide. Satisfaction doesn't exaggerate. Everything is scaled to reality. Close up. The raft bears your marks. From where you stand most often. Slight grooves from repeated tasks. Imperfect repairs layered over older ones. None of it looks temporary. This life doesn't pretend to be temporary. It asks commitment, not forever, but fully. And when you commit fully, something unexpected happens. The work stops feeling heavy. It still demands effort, but not resistance. You stop wishing it were easier. You stop comparing it to anything else. You simply do what needs doing. Close up. That looks like calm, not peace. Calm, the kind that comes from understanding the cost and choosing to pay it anyway. The water moves. The raft responds. You adjust, again and again and again. This is the everyday reality of floating raft life seen close. Felt fully. Lived honestly. Asterisk. Stay here for a moment. Don't look away. This life only reveals itself when you get close enough to hear it breathe. The raft moves beneath your feet. Not enough to scare you, just enough to remind you. You feel it before you think it. The sound of water pressing against wood, the quiet strain in rope, the soft resistance under your weight. Nothing here is solid, and nothing here is careless. Look at the hands. They are never clean, never fully dry. They carry the memory of work, small cuts, worn skin, muscle built slowly, without display. These hands don't rush, Every movement considers balance. Every action has consequence. There is no space for excess, not in objects, not in motion, not in thought. The raft teaches this silently. Close enough, you can see the wood swell and shrink. Feel the way temperature changes its mood. Hear the way it responds to pressure. This is not a surface you dominate. It is one you cooperate with. Breathing changes out. Here, slower, deeper, unforced. Your body listens before your mind speaks. That is not peace. It is awareness. Awareness demands energy. Hard work doesn't shout. It hums. It lives in repetition, in vigilance, in restraint. The work is never finished, only paused. Look at the water. It reflects, but it does not explain. You start reading its answers. Wind across the surface, tension in the current, the way light breaks differently at certain hours. These details become language, and once you understand the language, you stop arguing with reality. Silence here is not empty. It is dense, filled with small sounds you once ignored, with thoughts you once avoided. There is no background noise to hide behind. If something feels wrong, you notice it immediately. In your posture, in your breath, in the way the raft responds. You don't panic. You adjust. That adjustment becomes instinct. The raft doesn't reward strength. It rewards patience. Force creates instability. Precision creates balance. This life teaches you to move only as much as necessary. No more. No less. Look closer. The raft carries scars. Solutions built from experience, not theory. Nothing here is perfect. Everything here works, and that difference matters. Hard work strips away performance. There is no one to impress, no image to protect. Only the question, will this hold? And when it does, you feel something quiet but solid. Not pride, not relief. Confidence. Confidence built from paying attention. Loneliness exists here, but it is honest. It doesn't come from absence. It comes from presence. You are fully here, with no distraction to dilute the moment. Your reflection in the water looks unfamiliar at first, not because it's changed, but because you are seeing it without filters. No rush, no urgency, no noise, just a person meeting their own limits and working within them. That clarity is heavy at first, then stabilizing. The raft continues to move. So do you, always adjusting, always listening. This life doesn't promise ease. It offers alignment between effort and outcome, between action and consequence. And when those align, something settles inside you. Not happiness, not comfort.com, the kind that comes from knowing you are doing exactly what this moment requires. The water moves. The raft responds. You stay balanced. That is enough.